Directors. We welcome members of the public, community, power staff, and board members who are joining us today at the Port of San Diego Administration Building. I will now call our meeting to order. Mari, please call the roll.
Director Elo Rivera. Director Fisher.
Present.
Director Insunza.
I'm here.
Director San Antonio. Director Suzuki.
Present.
Vice Chair Yamani.
Here.
Chair Lassen-Remer.
Here.
Quorum, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We now will stand and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We begin by acknowledging that this meeting is taking place on land of the original inhabitants of the greater San Diego region. A land acknowledgement is a meaningful step towards working with Native communities to create partnerships and inclusion in the stewardship and protection of cultural resources and homelands. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that were the traditional lands of the Kumeyaay. Thank you. So I would like to just begin by welcoming Anna Laprise. Is that how I'm saying your name? Hi, welcome. Senior Origination Associate. Please come up and introduce yourself. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Really great to be here. My name is Anna Laprise. I recently relocated to San Diego for my role as a Senior Origination Associate, working on the Power Services team. I relocated most recently from Seattle, Washington, where I was working on corporate PPAs for a company called Level 10 Energy. Really excited to be working at a load serving entity in the buyer space. Originally, I'm from Maine and really, really excited to be here. So great to meet you all and thank you for having me.
Anna, how are you doing on rain compared to Seattle of the last couple of days?
It is a lot more expensive down here. we don't have the hydro that they have in Seattle.
So thank you. Welcome. Okay, tonight's agenda will be slightly reordered. Item 13, which is the informational update on battery energy storage systems, is moved to after item 17, which is the workforce commitment assessment. So we now begin with non-agenda public comments. I'd like to note that written public comments submitted before the board meeting were emailed to all board members prior to the meeting and will be posted online. Mari, do we have any non-agenda public comments?
We do not, Madam Chair.
We do not. Maybe we can tell some of the people at our board meeting that they should come here. So we will now move to the consent calendar, which this is items 1 through 12. Do any board members wish to pull any consent items or have any comments on any consent items? Okay. Mari, do we have any public comment on the consent agenda?
We do not, Madam Chair.
We do not. Are there any more board member comments, questions, or can I have a motion for the
Motion to
consent
approve.
agenda?
Second.
You guys have to decide who was first.
Commissioner.
Okay. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Director Elo Rivera.
Yes.
Director Fisher.
Aye.
Director Insunza.
Yes.
Director San Antonio. Director Suzuki.
Aye.
Vice Chair Yamani.
Aye.
Chair Lassen-Remer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so we now move to item 14, fiscal year end 2024-2025 financial audit. Dr. Washington, and do you have anyone else with you, Alunia? Rico?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Alana Rico should be joining us virtually online.
Okay, is it from online?
Yes.
Great. So go ahead.
Okay, great. Good evening, Chair, Madam Vice Chair, directors, member of community power staff, and members of the public. I'm Dr. Eric Washington, Chief Financial Officer at San Diego Community Power. I am presenting this item to receive and file by the Board of Directors, joined this evening by Ms. Rico to report out on the final outcome of our 2025 audit report. You'll recall in October at our last board meeting The auditors were present to provide an update on the progress. So now that that audit's concluded, I've invited them back to report out directly to the board the outcome from that audit. With that, Ms. Rico, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Eric. All right, if you could go to the next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. So to introduce our team, we have Kellen Gilbert as our audit partner, Eliandra Schaefer is our engagement supervisor, and myself as the senior associate. Next slide, please. So as Eric mentioned, following up on our presentation that we provided to the board October 23rd, we are happy to report that the 2025 audit is now complete. So we have essentially reported the following: an unmodified opinion, which is essentially a clean audit opinion. So based on our audit and our procedures that we performed, the financial statements are materially accurate. And we also reported no significant deficiencies or material weakness in internal control. Next slide, please. And then for our required board communications, as discussed in the financial statements, note 13, Community Power did adopt GASB 102 through 104, but the overall impact did not have a material effect on the financials. We also didn't propose any audit adjustments to the financial statements, and we didn't identify any significant or unusual transactions. There were no disagreements with management concerning the scope of our audit, and we didn't encounter any difficulties dealing with management. We'd like to acknowledge Eric and Tim and all of their hard work and efforts, as well as Mike Maher at Maher Accountancy and helping us complete the audit report timely. And then lastly, we did issue a letter to the board of directors dated October 30th, detailing all of these required audit communications. Next slide, please. And that concludes the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from any of my colleagues?
Madam Chair.
Please.
Thank you. Just wanted to thank the team of Dr. Washington for completing this and reporting to us as early as now. Thank you so much, Dr. Washington.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Any more questions before we go to public comment? Okay, Murray, any public comment?
None, Madam Chair.
No public comment. Okay. Well, I would just want to echo Director Yamani. It's great to submit an audit and then the external auditors agree that we have a clean bill of health. So thank you so much for all of your work.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. This is a receive and file. So if there's no further comments, we'll move on to item number 15. Thank you, Dr. Washington. Item number 15 is adopt resolution number 2025 to 2022, authorizing execution of a grant agreement EPC 25015 with the California Energy Commission and authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to accept, appropriate, and expend funds and related actions. Rachel Zook will present this item.
First off, I'm thrilled that you read that entire thing because that means that I don't have to. Second, you pronounced my last name correctly, which almost nobody does. I really appreciate that. Rachel Zook, Vehicle Grid Integration Program Manager on the Customer Programs team. I'm very excited to bring forward this item. And I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes talking about CEC Grant Agreement EPC 25015. For a little bit of background information, we launched our V1G pilot EV Flex Connect earlier this year. V1G is a term describing unidirectional managed charging. So vehicles are taking energy from the grid, but there's the ability to control the charging rate and the time at which they're doing that. The focus of EV Flex Connect is on residential customers that charge their eligible EV at home. Our scope includes the enrollment of about 1,000 participants. We create optimized charging schedules for these participants, and we monitor their charging activity. We aim to learn more about the load shifting capabilities of EVs, how we can treat them as assets as opposed to liabilities, and the value that they can provide to community power by utilizing V1G strategies. A little over a year ago, the California Energy Commission, or the CEC, released a grant funding opportunity for projects that would increase the value proposition of distributed energy resources to customers and the grid. There were 3 distinct project groups, one of those being focused on identifying vehicle grid integration, or VGI, knowledge gaps. We thought that this would be a great opportunity to leverage existing data from our already funded pilot to secure funding for a deep dive analysis of our pilot and finding more out about the value of UNG strategies for us. We partnered with researchers at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, PNNL, on this proposal. We're very excited to do this. The folks at PNNL have a ton of experience with research specifically on electric grid modernization and clean transportation. We also secured an agreement with San Diego Gas and Electric to support our research by providing distribution system operations data that we wouldn't have access to otherwise. Quick overview of the grant application and agreement timeline. The CEC released this grant funding opportunity in October of last year. Project abstracts were due in December, so we submitted that in partnership with PNNL. In January of this year, the CEC notified us that we had passed phase 1, our abstract had passed, and we were invited to submit a full project application. In March, we submitted this application, again with PNNL. And then in May, the CEC posted their list of proposed awards, which included our project. Just want to take a moment to highlight how exciting this is. We were one of only 2 projects selected in our category. It shows that we're doing really innovative work here at Community Power, and it's not just beneficial to us and our learnings. The Energy Commission sees it as being critical to the statewide learnings on vehicle grid integration, helpful for other CCAs and any load serving entity. After the awards were posted, throughout the summer, we worked with the CEC to finalize the grant agreement documents. And then in September, at the September 10th, I believe, CEC business meeting, the commissioners unanimously approved moving forward with our project. For some details on the project itself, it's the Charging, Harmonization, and Analysis for Resilient Grid Efficient Utilization and Planning Project. We just call it Charge Up. We will analyze and quantify the value of advanced managed charging or V1G strategies in balancing bulk system and distribution operational needs. Grant agreement EPC 25015 is what outlines this project. The total awarded amount is what we requested from the CEC in our application. It's $693,611. Project partner and major grant subrecipient PNNL is leading the bulk of the technical analysis, and they will be receiving about 90% of the awarded amount for this. We will receive about the remaining 10% for leading project management activities, coordinating ongoing engagement with our V1G pilot, and contributing our expertise on CCA operations. Our project partners, but not grant subrecipients, are SDG&E and Optiwatt, our V1G software provider. As mentioned before, SDG&E is going to share distribution system data and their expertise in distribution operations so that we can get insight that we would not otherwise have if we had just been doing this on our own with the data that we have accessible every day. And then Optiwatt will support ongoing pilot participant engagement and implementation of managed charging strategies throughout this research project. Again, this is something that we're very excited about. It's driving forward innovation, it's driving forward partnerships with national laboratories, with San Diego Gas and Electric, and we're really looking forward to getting moving on this. That's it for my presentation.
Thank you. Before we go to public comment, I just take an opportunity if any of my colleagues have any questions or comments, please.
I just wanted to say thank you to you and your group for just aggressively seeking these grant opportunities and the work it takes to put together grant applications. It is not easy. It's not a 5-page document. And so thank you, because that's awesome that we basically almost $700,000 and for such an important project. So thank you for that and good work. This is fantastic.
Other comments or questions? I actually do. I'd love you to unpack it for us a little bit more. What are advanced charging V1 strategies? What does that mean? And what is the research design that we have to utilize to see what the value is that's generated?
Yeah, so I think like a very basic example of a managed charging strategy would be to make sure that somebody who's on a time of use rate isn't charging their vehicle during on-peak hours. So if they get home from work at 6 p.m. and plug in their car, it's not going to start charging, certainly not in the 4 to 9 p.m. window, and potentially not until the super off-peak window starts at midnight. So again, that's like a very basic example. Getting into more advanced strategies would be trying to Like something we're very interested in is smoothing the overnight peak. A lot of people have their vehicles set to start charging at midnight when that super off peak window starts. That's created a secondary peak. We would love to be able to smooth that throughout the entire super off peak window between midnight and 6 a.m. Hopefully realize some resource adequacy savings there. With distribution operations data from SDG&E, we can also take a look at what the impacts are on local substations, things like that, get a better idea of how strained the grid might be in certain parts of San Diego where there are more EVs concentrated. And the more information we have, the more that we can tweak our managed charging strategies. We don't have it fully fleshed out yet. We'll be leaning certainly on PNNL for that. Once we get our preliminary data, then they can start to fine tune their first iteration of models for this. And we'll start implementing those strategies and then continue tweaking throughout the project.
So you would maybe roll out different approaches to the advanced managed charging and then compare how those impact the grid, or I mean, how would you assess the impacts of these different charging strategies?
We'll be looking at it from several different angles. And again, really relying on the economic analysis team at PNNL that we're very fortunate to be working with. Generally, from our side, particularly if we didn't have a grant like this, we would just be looking at the bulk system or generation focused value, because as a CCA, that's what our focus is. We're not paying as much attention to the lines. That's not our job. So if we were just looking at that, it would be the potential of lowering our resource adequacy obligations. Not so much local generation focused at this point because it is unidirectional. But if we're also getting data from SDG&E, then we can look at, for example, if we are just focusing on what's good for us, is there a negative impact on the distribution system? And that's something that we would not have been able to look at without additional separate funding. So there's certainly a balance. What is good for us might not be good for the distribution system, at least some of the time. What we're doing solely focused on ourselves might also be beneficial to the distribution system. We really don't know because we haven't had the data to be able to assess that properly. But this will give us much more insight into how we can balance those two things, and ideally how we can work with SDG&E on programs like this so that we don't have, for example, a competing managed charging program where they're optimizing for what's best on their end and we're optimizing for what's best on our end, and we're competing for the same customers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions from anyone? Does anyone have a motion?
We don't have any public comments, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
We don't have any public comments on this item.
Oh, I asked that. You said there was no comments. Okay, great. We still have no comments. Okay. And do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Second. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Director Eloy Rivera. Yes. Director Fisher.
Aye.
Director Insunza.
Yes.
Director San Antonio. Director Suzuki.
Aye.
Vice Chair Yamani.
Aye.
Chair Lassen-Remer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So now we move on to item 16. This is approve agreement with CGI Technologies and Solutions for the development and deployment of an organization-wide customer relationship management CRM platform for a not to exceed amount of $1,166,915. Stephen?
Well, good evening, everyone. Madam Chair, members of the board, 18 members, esteemed colleagues, and general public. As I was monitoring the meeting, if you don't mind, Director Eloy Rivera, please make sure your mic is on. I'm not sure if I heard you, so just want to mention that first. I have the pleasure to present to you item number 16 on the agenda, which is the agreement for the CRM project. What you have before you is an agreement to set up an enterprise CRM system for the Community Power Agency. The Community Power initiated, just to give a quick background of this project, we initiated this project back in June. and posted an RFP for bidding on an enterprise CRM system. We did get 6 responders. Half of them responded with a similar system, which the CGI company had proposed as well. So why CGI? After going through a rigorous evaluation of all the different proposals, Community Power elected to go with CGI for their experiences and the depth of skills with public agencies. They in fact have had the similar CRM project for the County of San Diego. So they have a local presence, even though they are a global company. Strategic objectives, the first one is to integrate the CRM with their current contact center and data management center with 360 view of our customer data. Currently Calpine, who we contract with, hosts our customer-focused CRM system where our customers call in and everything is captured within the CRM system there. We hope to integrate that with our own enterprise CRM system. We want to support all the functional areas of the departments, public affairs, programs, and the SDRN team as well. And finally, one of the main objectives and a very important objective is to ensure compliance with cybersecurity, privacy measures and frameworks. Some of the alphabet soup that is presented up there, the SOC 2, which focuses on customer data and how to handle customer data and information. ISO 27001, which is a general cybersecurity framework for making sure that confidentiality, integrity, and availability is addressed. ISO 27001, it's hard to read up there, expands on that framework, but focuses on PII data specifically. NIST 8031 is another standard that is primarily focused on federal and public governments, but it kind of elaborates on the similar standards that ISO 27001 provides as well. Some of the highlights of this project, as far as the technology stack is concerned, the proposal is for standing up our own Microsoft Dynamics CRM platform, which we hope to integrate with our current CRM solution that I mentioned earlier. This is an Azure-based solution that is provided or programmed by the CGI company. Please note that this will be our Azure system that we already own. So we control the security, we control access, and we control the measures that we need to make sure that what they provide, again, is ensured with all the cybersecurity measures that we focused on, that I mentioned earlier. This is a managed service model. The plan right now is for a 10-month implementation phase, where upon successful completion and acceptance, we will have a 12-month service contract with them to provide services and support, what we call level 2, level 3, support for the CRM solution with the agency and SDRN. The project is not to exceed 1.167 million, as you will see in your packet. Most of that is during the implementation phase. I believe that is approximately 824,000, with the remaining amount for the 1-year service and support. The CGI company itself, they have industry experts. They're, like I said, a large company, 91,000 globally and 9,500 in energy and utility space. As I mentioned earlier, they have a proven experience with public agencies, and they, again, have a local presence here with the San Diego office. So that was a positive there. The next step is, upon approval, we will be coordinating with the PMO office. I know that sounds office, I'm redundant, I apologize. So we will be coordinating with the project management office to lead the project management from the agency's perspective with CGI. We will be initiating the planning phase, gathering all the requirements, confirming the buy-in from all the different business units that are major components of the solution. And then training will be provided at the end of the implementation phase. There'll be 3 different phases during the 10-month implementation. As you see in the slide there, phase 1 is scope definition and requirement planning, gathering. Phase 2, system configuration and data integration. And last but not least, phase 3, which I believe is one of the more important ones, user training and go live support. The expected outcome of this project is to have an enhanced customer engagement and operational efficiency. Making a note for next time, I gotta make a font bigger. Compliance with regulatory standards and improved data security. And that concludes my presentation on this item. I'll be more than happy to address any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from my colleagues?
Through the chair, I think I forgot to ask Dr. Washington during my briefing. No fiscal impact, right, sir? Because it's already included in the operational budget for 25-26. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No worries. Any questions on item 16? Go ahead, Councilmember Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for bringing this forward. I have a few questions. I'm going to try and probably fail not to get out over my skis here in terms of the questions I'm asking, but they come from wanting to make sure that we're being as careful as possible. The first, if you can help us understand what firewalls exist and how they exist between the information and the data of our agency and our customers and any other agencies or companies that we'd be interacting with?
Well, if I may, excuse me, if I may set an example, we have currently a project in place. We call it the Enterprise Data Platform Project, where it is a cloud solution, but we have maintained a high level of strict cybersecurity measures in place already. When it comes to firewall, there are firewalls in place, virtual firewalls, to protect our cloud environment. Since this is a cloud solution, nothing is hosted on-prem. So even though we do have a firewall in place in our facility, this being a cloud solution, all those rules and compliance with all the cybersecurity measures will be implemented within this project.
And are there third-party audits to test the system out?
We do have in place, besides the required third-party audits from one of our regulators, we do have plans in place to perform regular audits, an annual system-wide pen testing, if you want to call it, of all of our systems, and then, of course, to continue to build improvements upon those findings. Yes.
Okay. And what are the restrictions on CGI's access to the information?
They will be provided information that they need to program this system. So usually that means like de-identified information of our customer data. That's been the standard that we use right now for, like I said, the example is that EDP project that is currently in place. So it's of utmost importance that we protect the privacy of our customers' information within our system. And again, a simple surefire method is to de-identify everything so that both parties involved and dedicating or ensuring that both parties involved are to protect that data.
And what's the protocols that are in place if there's any breaches?
We have a developing incident response plan for any type of breaches that we have. So that is in development.
How quickly is San Diego Community Power notified if that happens?
I'm sorry?
How quickly is Community Power notified if that happens?
Almost instantly. We have the team that is in development with this, and again, the EDP project. We do have a cybersecurity team in place there and they're very responsive. We have regular meetings to understand the cybersecurity measures and responses thereof should anything get breached.
Okay, and then I think this is the last question. If I'm understanding correctly, the idea is for this to come fully in-house. Is the runway long enough for us to be able to do that? And if not, what does it look like to push that runway out?
Well, this project is to build our own CRM in-house, to support the programs team in-house, to support REN and public affairs, and to integrate what we have right now that Calpine is hosting. That remains to be seen how much we can integrate with the public facing customer data that Calpine hosts for us and secures for us. And so again, this project is focusing on supporting REN in their programs and public affairs and program. And I left one out. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you answering all those questions.
My pleasure.
We can go to public. Oh, yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. So obviously you've probably vetted this out. Is 10 months an adequate time to get the project or get everything implemented?
That was what the RFI process to identify how long the duration is, knowing what we scoped out in the scope. So that has been pretty common in all the RFPs that we have received. And as I mentioned, we received 6 RFPs for this process. I'm sorry, 6 quotes responded.
And so if the project's not implemented in 10 months, does it just go till it's implemented, then the 12-month support time starts after that?
I believe the agreement states that project has to go to completion. So if there's a change needed where they have to prolong or have more time, then there's a formal process in place for scope changes or a change management process that both parties sign off on, so that it's clear, what the issue is, why we need to prolong the project, so that that is in place in this agreement.
Okay. And then obviously this is going to bring a lot of work back in house. Does that mean that the current contracts that we have with outsourced work, do they end at the 10-month period once it's implemented, or is it during the support period?
What part of the agreement states that after the project gets implemented and when we go live and in production, we the party involved, CGI, is to provide a recommendation of how the support model looks for us. And we've had a similar type of arrangement with EDP, our platform right now, so that we have a better understanding of the requirements that this system will need.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate your answers.
Very welcome. Thank you.
We can go to public comment.
We don't have any public comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, or if we have a motion?
Motion for approval, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second.
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
Me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Elo Rivera,
Yes.
Director Fisher,
Aye.
Director Insunza,
Yes.
Director San Antonio, Director Suzuki,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yamani,
Aye.
Chair Lassen Reimer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to item 17. This is an item that Director Elo Rivera and I discussed a couple of meetings ago. So we will present this item. Councilmember, would you like me to start, or do you want to kick us off? Okay, sounds good. So first of all, thank you very much for all of your leadership and your partnership in bringing this forward. So today's action is meant to kick off a comprehensive update of Community Power's workforce policies. This includes requiring project labor agreements on community power projects, and the proposal with quite a bit of guide rails regarding what that will look like and should look like and needs to look like, includes staff taking our guide rails and returning to the board in February with specific and detailed policy recommendations for us to vote to approve. The intention here at core is to ensure that Community Power's investments meet and exceed high road labor standards. And I think from the very beginning, this entire effort here at San Diego Community Power has really been about aligning community benefit with advancing a clean energy future and saving money for ratepayers. And I think those are been from the outset the three pillars of this work. So we really just want to ensure that we continue advancing that. My strong belief is that we need to build a high-skilled, high-quality labor force in clean energy. And the best way to do that is to be investing in higher labor standards right here in San Diego County, that these should not be folks coming from outside of our county to do the work that benefits our community. And if people are living here, they should be able to afford to live here. That's really critical. You should not be working hard to serve the community of San Diego County and not be able to keep a roof over your head or put food on the table for your family. So I want to make sure that our developers and our contractors are competing for our business at San Diego Community Power based on quality and innovation and efficiency, not by squeezing working families. So that's why I wanted to bring this forward. This has been one of my top priorities over the last 4 years. I know I was the original driver behind the kind of current structure of our community benefit agreement, and knew at the time it was not going to be sufficient, but you take one step forward and you see how it goes. And we took a big step forward then, and it's time for us to take another big step forward today. I think it's really critical that we invest in developing and retaining the skilled clean energy workforce we need to meet our climate goals in a way that raises all boats here in San Diego County. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to my partner, Councilmember Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your leadership and partnership as well. Very much appreciate it. And thanks to everyone here on staff, our friends from the labor community, who've put in some time and a lot of time and effort into this. So, I think this kind of reflects an evolution of San Diego Community Power and the responsibility to ensure that clean energy investments are uplifting workers and communities. There's a lot of conversation right now about like abundance and that we have to choose between advancement and innovation and clean energy and worker standards. And while it's probably true that not every project can be all things to all people, it's certainly also true that we don't have to sell workers out in order to provide clean, renewable energy, low cost, affordable energy to folks. I believe we can do that. And in doing so, ensure that we continue to make this a more fair economy. So you help put important standards in place. This agency has made a promise that clean energy should create good jobs, support economic mobility, respect the dignity of workers. And I think this is an opportunity for us to raise those standards. So what we're going to see, I think, through advancing efforts like this is an even more skilled, more reliable workforce on our projects. We'll have even better project quality and know that ratepayer dollars are invested in ways that benefit the local economy in a really holistic way. And in doing so, we're improving the future of the region in multiple ways. Chair, you said it really well. The folks who work in this region should be able to afford to live in this region. We see lots of efforts to undermine that, and so I'm really glad and appreciative to be part of an effort here to move not just the agency forward, but we know that when we put standards like this in place, it lifts the floor across the region as well. And so the kind of ripple effect of positive impacts don't just end with the folks who will be doing the work on these projects, but everyone who will be doing work on similar projects across the region. So thank you again for your partnership, Chair. Thank you, everyone on the Community Power staff for your efforts. And again, thank you, our friends in the labor movement for helping guide this process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So before we go to public comments, I just wanted to see if there's any questions or comments from any of my colleagues? And then we'll have public comment and then we can have a discussion. Please.
I'm glad to see that, since Community Power's inception, that ISW pleas were applied. And I'm trying to understand this well, that the EPEC criteria, there's all the categories we have. And this is to ensure that, with any of our power purchase agreements and the developers we want to partner with in these RFPs, that it guarantees, is it right now over at least 50% of organized union labor? How far does it push Community Power to change, our evaluation criteria? And what does that do to our workforce? How does that push further developers when they're trying to get these PPAs and RFPs? What does that look like? What does it look like in plain language to our communities and reporting back? Does it mean that we're increasing the amount of contract prevailing wage workers? How does that play out?
I'll do my best to answer it. I think the intention here is obviously a lot of those details are going to need to be fleshed out by staff when they come back with the policy, but certainly that's the goal. And the clear intention here is that we're increasing and, to some extent, there will be, my hope would be we'd get to 100%, right? That would be the hope. I think that there's some projects that they might be too small or it might not be possible, but that's where we're going. And we want to give staff the direction to do the best they can, and especially to work with the building trades on, best practices and come back to us with a best practice framework.
And in my very amateur one-year experience as a councilman in the second largest city, we're just not talking about prevailing wages and putting food on the table for workers. These are the best workers. These are the best trained, skilled workers that most of them come from the South County, mostly from my neighborhoods, West Chula Vista, National City, San Isidro. So representing the South Bay, a couple of us with Imperial Beach as well, I do want to see that push. I want to be able to take the EPEC criteria with labor to ensure that, we're putting out RFPs, getting PPAs, that these developers understand that this is what we're pushing for. These are expectations. We have a very vulnerable federal government right now. A lot of people aren't able to live on their wages. And I'm hoping that, our board can consider that to strengthening our commitment to organized labor with our power purchase agreements.
Thank you. And I would urge staff to take these comments into account as we sort of work towards developing these policies. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. To my colleagues, I recognize that the last time this came to the board, I probably wasn't very constructive in my comments, shared an opinion, but this time around, I definitely will be a little bit more constructive in my comments. For me, I look at this as a whole. There are some great parts about the community benefits part. I think is fantastic. The environmental stewardship, again, resonates well with me. My concern is in the workforce development criteria, like giving a higher rating to developers, workers that have existing PLAs, I don't think is very consistent with the inclusive workforce policy that's a few pages later. I think that there's probably some value in looking at, making sure that we do pay prevailing wage, that we do provide for people who live and work in this region to be able to do so with somewhat of an ease, even though that's very difficult. But I think that they're not consistent in saying that we want to have an inclusive workforce and all these other policies, but we're going to give a higher rating to developers and contractors who have an existing PLA. Because I believe if they're the highest skilled and they're the best bidder, then they should be awarded the contract. So,
thank you. Other comments from my colleagues before we move to public comment? Mari, you have any requests to speak?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 4 public comments. First up is David Johnson. Please approach the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
How you doing, Chair, Board? David Johnson with the Ironworkers out of Local 229. I represent over 1,700 members, women, men, and all colors and ethnicities. PLAs are real powerful, okay? Because it don't only give unions a chance, it gives the non-union where it's a little lower cost, but they get a chance to come on that project and they get a chance to get core workers. We got local hire, good benefits. We're all being faced with a lot of challenges now in the country. I believe in PLAs. I believe in union. I believe in worker rights. And I agree with Mike over here, what he's saying. The best workers, the skilled, should get the money that they deserve. So I agree with passing this and getting a PLA on the power projects that's coming up. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Next up is Anselmo Estrella from SD Building Trades.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Anselmo Jake Estrada, AJ Estrada. Thank you so much, Chair Lawson Reamer, as well as Board of Director Elo Rivera for bringing this forward. Again, my name is AJ Estrada. I'm the Political Director for the San Diego County Building and Construction Trades Council. We represent 35,000 union construction workers across San Diego County. I'm here to speak in support of the recommendations to review and revise your agency's existing workforce language to include a project labor agreement, or PLA. PLAs are a policy tool that allows public agencies to enable local hiring and help manage complex construction projects efficiently. They ensure that workers are trained, skilled, and qualified. They set goals for hiring local workers. They can set targets for securing local business participation and create career opportunities for entry-level workers. They provide certainty for the public by establishing the rules, procedures, and project-specific standards up front. They provide transparency that ensures that projects are meeting goals and are managed effectively. They provide accountability by holding all parties accountable for meeting agreed upon standards, goals, and project management practices. They require fair and open competition per California Public Contract Code 2500. We know that your current workforce policy laid out a framework to create strong job quality standards for workers involved in the generation and distribution of clean energy. We believe that the steps you are taking today will operationalize those aspirations, ensuring that both public tax dollars and ratepayer funds will ensure that the jobs associated with energy acquired through PPAs and any public construction dollars invested in projects being developed by SDCP will be leveraged to support middle-class careers for workers, and also produce high-quality buildings and infrastructure that will serve generations of SDCP members as customers as well. We look forward to partnering with all of you to work toward these shared goals and ask you to support a PLA for the San Diego Community Power and more robust standards for PPAs. And just a final note, project labor agreements are not new. Even across the county, the longest standard PSA is with the San Diego Unified School District. Board of Director Fisher, I would love to connect you with that school district, one of the largest in the state. Some folks would think that only union workers are on those projects. 80% are non-union workers. So not only does that benefit union workers, it benefits all folks. And that's what we really feel project labor agreements deliver. They raise the votes for all of us, not just a couple workers. Thank you.
Next, we have Carol Kim, but I believe she's left. Okay. Next is Cristina Marquez with IBEW.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, esteemed board members, Chair Lawson Reamer. Cristina Marquez speaking on behalf of 3,700 power professionals and union electricians of IBEW Local 569 in San Diego and Imperial counties. We urge you to support item number 17 to direct staff to negotiate with the San Diego Building and Construction Trades Council for project workforce language and commitments for new build renewable energy and storage projects. The Trades Council affiliated local union represent construction workers that live, work, and raise their families in San Diego County and form the backbone of the region's skilled construction workforce. Along with the negotiations and maintenance for preventative measures and safety of the projects, but also to create some consistent work for this. Man, it's been a long day. I got this. So maintenance will create some long-term consistent work for the skilled tradespeople and electricians. Over the past 2 decades, an increasing number of public entities, including the San Diego Port, the City of San Diego MTS, LA Metro, have all adopted project labor agreements with local hire provisions because these agreements are successful and efficient construction operations, maximizing local and economic and employment benefits generated from the expenditure of public funds, and advancing equity with new career and apprenticeship opportunities for the historically underserved community. I was one of those apprentices. I know you guys have heard my story, but I'll say it again, that was able to benefit from some of these project labor agreements. And I'm very thankful to be given that opportunity to work in the field and gain that knowledge with the hands-on training, full family health care benefits. And it's actually tuition-free training that we receive and that come from a community college. So it's accredited. And this is the type of stuff that is like a dream come true and a win-win-win for everybody. And I really hope that you guys can take the high road and push forward to vote yes on this. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
We have one more, Madam Chair. Efrain Lopez with La Yuna. He's online.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, board members. My name is Efrain Lopez, and I proudly represent Labor's Local 300. I stand in unequivocal support of this project labor agreement because it ensures our members can advance their careers and enhance their benefits, including great wages, pensions, health insurance, and many other essential advantages our union offers. I strongly urge you to move forward with this project labor agreement in collaboration with the San Diego County Building and Construction Trades Council. Thank you.
No more, Madam Chair. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Coming back to my colleagues, any other thoughts on this item? Please, Director Yamani.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I look forward to the language that will be diligently be worked upon by our staff. I look forward to coming that before us. I know that with building trades who have expertise in writing those language will provide us with guidelines that will keep this program for this organization very well managed. Thank you.
Please.
I wanted to thank you for bringing this forward because this is important. I think project labor agreements are very important. I think that what Christina had mentioned about apprenticeships, that's absolutely important. We need people to be training who aren't worried that they can't afford to be training. And that provides for them. And that is something that I think anyone, no matter what you do for a living, you appreciate when you're getting paid for learning. And so I think it's a great thing. And also it's important because these are people who are not going to be, they're going to be AI proof pretty much. We're not going to, and so we really need to take care of them. So I absolutely forward. I mean, I believe in it. So thank you for it.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Yes, please.
Project labor agreements work. I've experienced that myself. We just finished the biggest construction of any resort in the Western United States, in the Gaylord, and that was about 85–90% unionized workers. We have 380 acres of land in my district that, ojalá, we hope, will be a university or a cooperation university, and that is city land. So we're absolutely going to implement a PLA. On Tuesday, I acknowledge Wold Industries. So we have a big piece of land, former Roar Industries, and these developers volunteered and did on their own to have it built by unionized workers. And I said adamantly that we love these type of partnerships with developers. And we love to see developers acknowledging that not only is the dividends or the pay scale on what they're profiting from still work with the best trained workers on the county. Not only that, something that has been bothering me, I just read an article yesterday. There's a lot of developers that aren't hiring unionized workers, and they're building. And week or two after, or even on the last couple of days of a job, they call ICE. They call our Border Patrol. And there are thousands of workers who are being deported out of the country because they're being taken advantage of. And organized unions protect workers, their benefits, healthcare, providing for their families. They're making sure they're protected. And with this political climate, we need now more than ever to push for PLAs with our PPAs to make sure that our power agreements are constructed by our unionized workers. So I applaud Councilmember Elo Rivera and Chair Lawson Remer for bringing this forward to us.
Thank you. Would you like to make a motion, Councilmember?
I would, Chair. I wanted to say thank you to my colleagues, and if I may, Ms. Marquez does such a good job of explaining kind of the difference that PLA has made in her life, and I'm wondering if we could have the other person in the room who has direct experience working on a project with a PLA come up and share, what that means in practical terms for a worker. We use acronyms, we use technical language, and I don't think that does us or the public the service that of hearing directly from workers of what it actually means to know that labor agreement is in place. So if it's all right with you, Chair.
Sir, please.
I think you still had a minute and a half left, right?
For those of us who don't use the hammers and the tools, like what does that mean for you?
Soft hands is what he's saying. Soft hands.
Soft hands here. So what I'll give a good example of is I'm with the ironworkers, so we build infrastructure, right? And I'm going to use the airport as an example. Okay, the ironworkers, what we do, we're the skeleton, the reinforcing of any infrastructure, parking garages, buildings. Like I want to use the airport, for example. If you guys been on a new airport, a lot of things that's covered up under that airport was built by ironworkers, right? With their hand, their sweat, the blood, the tears, hanging the iron, tying the rebar in the footings. And what I mean is foundations. So this building wouldn't be here if it wasn't for iron and the foundations, right? So I explain it like this. Your skeleton, if you don't have that, I probably wouldn't be standing up at 5'10". I'll probably land on the ground. So that's how I look at ironworkers. Ironworkers, until we get in there and do our job, because we're the infrastructure and the reinforcing of the buildings, bridges, all those things, nothing happens. So I say it's like a Christmas tree. We set it up and everybody hang everything on it. We got the electricians coming in, we got the carpenters and laborers, but behind all of it, it's a reinforced building and it's beautiful. It's a little architectural metal sometimes, but it is a lot of hard work. It do provide great benefits, opportunities, PLAs. I sit on the ICOC for the San Diego School District. So that's the Independent Oversight Committee. So we get a lot of bond measures and money to build the school district. But what I will say, what's real important right now with the PLAs, a lot of things around us, people are not bidding, right? It's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of scaring going on. So as the people, it all comes down to us, okay? So we'll get through this. But what I was going with is that it's just powerful to see the people still going in every day, working, even being threatened with your job, or just a lot of things are on the table that shouldn't be on the table for mankind, but it is. But PLAs are great. It's blessed me and my family and a lot of union members, iron workers. Like I said, I'm always start with us because I feel like we're the Marines or the Navy SEAL of the trades. We're not that big because everybody can't do our job, right? And I don't want everybody to do our job. I want you to love to do our job, So if you don't love it, then you can't hang with us. But you know what? Thank you guys again. Thank you again for giving me another shot. And I recommend you guys pass this. And we're also right now we're under attack because we were supposed to come with a lot of offshore wind here on the East Coast in Boston. Those guys are going real good with it. They already kind of been established. So on the West Coast, all that money got froze. So we won't be doing no offshore wind now. but we do got a huge project in Ocotillo Wells where our iron workers are replacing 75 towers down in Ocotillo Wells right now. And it's with the IRA money. So it's the second phase, and what they're doing, they're switching out the blades. These blades are 185 feet long. They're 25,000 pounds. You got people up in the air, 200 feet, working every day. Everything is going good, and I really appreciate you guys, and I hope we get this passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was motion.
And that was your motion. I'll second. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor in the second. Mari, please call the roll.
Director Elo Rivera,
Yes.
Director Fisher,
Nay.
Director Insunza,
Yes.
Director San Antonio, Director Suzuki,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yamani,
Aye.
Chair Lassen Reamer.
Yes.
It passes.
Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody. We now move to item 13, informational update on battery energy storage systems.
Good evening, Chair, honorable directors. My name is Lee Friedman. I'm the Senior Manager of Strategic Partnerships here at San Diego Community Power. Battery energy storage systems are critical to reaching our 2035 goals for 100% renewable power and our local development goals. And Community Power works with top-tier developers and suppliers who make sure that these systems are designed, built, and operated at the highest standards, and that any potential impacts of these systems based on location are identified and mitigated. For today's informational presentation, I've brought, you won't be hearing much more from me because there are much better people in this room to talk about this, two highly respected experts in their respected fields. So we're going to hear first a presentation from the San Diego Fire Department Battalion Chief, Robert Resende, who will provide a Battery 101 and how the landscape of battery storage systems has evolved and the ways our public safety professionals work to mitigate the potential risks of battery emergencies. Chief Resende has been with the Fire Rescue Department for nearly 20 years now and is tasked with managing preparedness for lithium-ion battery emergencies. After that presentation, we'll be hearing from Cleantech President and CEO Jason Anderson, who will be sharing the results of a survey that was conducted to understand local sentiment towards battery energy storage systems. Cleantech San Diego is a member-based organization, business founded in 2007 that positions the greater San Diego region as a global leader in the clean tech economy. It includes over 130 businesses, universities, governments, and nonprofits working to benefit sustainable solutions in San Diego. And I would now like to turn it over to Chief Resende.
Thank you. All right, good evening, Madam Chair, board members. Thank you for having me. First, I want to add a little bit of the background. I am not only the City of San Diego Battalion Chief, but I'm also a Regional Alternative Energy Emergency Response Coordinator for the county, which means that I work with all first responders in your jurisdictions, all the fire departments throughout the county in dealing with all things battery emergencies. So we're going to try to do a quick 101. Normally, I teach this class with the fire department. It's at least 4 hours. Sometimes it's 8. I'll try to do it in less than 15 minutes if I can. So the non-rechargeable batteries. So the thing is, we got to make sure that we understand the difference between all types of batteries, right? So this is real basic. So you got your basic alkaline batteries we've had forever. Those are still around. They also have different types of batteries, like lithium metal batteries. But what we're talking about today is going to be the rechargeable batteries and primarily lithium ion batteries. They have basically brought us into the 21st century, right? So the reason we can walk around with cell phones and our laptops and batteries that last over 24 hours and I'll do all kinds of amazing things with battery powered devices is because of the development of lithium ion batteries. Although they've been around since the 90s, they didn't really take off until early 2000s. I brought some props so you can see in firsthand. So the first one on the left that you see is a cylindrical cell. They come in different sizes. You got small, medium, large. It's the largest one right now on the market. It's the Cybertruck one. And you're going to have about 7,000 of these inside an electric vehicle typically, all connected together. One of these cells, if they fail, will release about 8 liters of gas. And so you can imagine 7,000 of them failing. That's quite a bit of gas that's going to be emitted from it. And those are the kind of things that your first responders are dealing with when they do fail. Another type of battery that's very common is the prismatic cell. And that looks like an encyclopedia. When I showed this to the new firefighters, they don't know what an encyclopedia is. So I have to demonstrate with this stuff. And these are typically found in your energy storage systems. They can be found in vehicles as well. Typically, however, there will be more in the large energy storage systems or the energy storage systems that you're on homes. That's the more common one. And then you're going to have the pouch cell, which is what's in your laptop or your cell phone. If you want it to be skinny, you want it to be a pouch cell. Now, some vehicles will use pouch cells as well. So vehicles will use all of these types of combinations. Energy storage systems will use some, but this is typically for the skinny stuff when you want it to be in your pocket. All these batteries are still lithium ion batteries. They're all generally based in the same manner. It's just how you're going to format the batteries, whether you could put it in a cylindrical, you make it like a flat or skinny. So how do they fail? How do they go bad? And there's really just three ways that they go bad. They're going to go through a mechanical abuse, and that's going to be anything from a vehicle accident, dropping your cell phone from an elevated height, dropping a dumbbell on your cell phone, or puncturing it by accident, right? That's how you're going to have a failure of a cell. And that could be whether it's a car or a pocket pouch, whether it's your laptop, any of those lithium-ion batteries have the potential failure for mechanical abuse. The other is electrical abuse. The electrical abuse is when you overcharge a battery, over discharge a battery. That sometimes happens when the most common one we see is when we see kids that messing around with their e-bikes and they want to make their e-bike go faster or longer than it was designed for. So they'll start adding more batteries to the system, and then they'll start using different chargers so they can go faster. And that causes electrical abuse. Those batteries were not designed to be taking that amount of voltage. The bike was not designed to be manufactured that way. And then we start seeing some failures with e-bikes. And then you also have the thermal abuse. And the thermal abuse is basically elevated temperatures. When you leave your cell phone, you're in Vegas, you leave your cell phone on the dashboard of your car, and your cell phone basically tells you, you cannot use me right now. It's the battery management system basically saying, it's too hot. I'm trying everything I can to make sure that I don't catch fire right now. The same thing happens when you have what I call an innocent bystander, where the battery is, say, in a garage, and you have a garage fire, and the battery just so happens to be there. And now it becomes part of that fire and it fails because of those elevated temperatures. So those are the three ways that you're going to have a failure of the battery. And when the battery fails, you're going to have something called thermal runaway. I'm sure you have already heard of this term nowadays. Now it's kind of more commonly known. Thermal runaway is going to be when a chemical chain reaction. Let's see if I have a slide for it. Yeah. So thermal runaway, you can think of it as a positive feedback loop. The failure occurs, the positive and the negative part of the batteries touch, the chemistry's mixed, not supposed to do that, and you have a failure, and then that chemical reaction starts to heat up the battery. The heat of the battery starts to speed up the chemical reaction. The speed of the chemical reaction increases the heat, and the heat increases the speed, and the speed increases the heat, and it just keeps going like a positive feedback loop until it consumes itself, until the entire battery gets destroyed. There's no way to stop it. There's nothing the fire department can do to stop thermal runaway. There's no technology out there that can stop thermal runaway. The chemical reaction, once it goes, it's going to have to go through its entire process. Where we can, some of the things that happen during the thermal runaway is that the little container will fail. You'll hear a pop, and this little container will start hissing where the gas comes out. Or this container will pop, and it'll start hissing. This container will typically swell up like a balloon and then pop. And the gases that come out are a combination of flammable, explosive, and toxic. So you'll see in a thermal runaway, the number one volume of gas that comes out is hydrogen, and then followed by carbon monoxide, which is very toxic. And then you have carbon dioxide, and you have hydrogen fluoride gas, which is extremely toxic. And then you have a variety of other VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which are also flammable and toxic. So you can imagine it's a really bad mixture of explosive and toxic gases that we're encountering in a variety of different shapes and sizes. And another challenge that the fire service faces is that the reignition is impossible to predict, and it's extremely common. We can go on an incident, say an electric vehicle, and we think we extinguished it, and then it continues to reignite every 15, 20 minutes. It just keeps going, and we can't stop it. And sometimes you think you stopped it, you tow the vehicle to a tow yard, and a month later it decides to catch fire. We've had vehicles catch fire after a year. They were removed from, one of the most common ones is a vehicle removed from a hurricane down in Florida, gets exposed to salt water. Batteries and salt water don't like to get together. They cause damage. Then they moved that vehicle. One of those vehicles ended up in Sacramento. And a year later, it caught fire. So that's one of the biggest challenge for us, is for us to, the common question is when's the incident over? And the answer is nobody can tell you. I don't know. So all we can do is prepare and anticipate for it to continue to reignite. And that's what I do, right? That's the training that I provide to our fire department personnel, is how do you anticipate that risk and how do you manage that risk? Because that's all we ever do in the fire service is risk management, right? What we can do is prevent propagation. We can cool the space between batteries. We can remove some batteries away from each other. That's how we try to prevent propagation, meaning the battery's failing. We know it's failing. It's going to fail. So the best thing we can do is try to limit the impact. And so sometimes it's just a matter of moving bikes away from each other. Sometimes it's a matter of moving the batteries away from each other. Sometimes it's putting water inside the battery compartment. Those are all different ways that we have to try to remove that propagation potential. So why are we talking about batteries? Why is this such a big deal? I mean, everybody really, I think, got very aware once we had a couple of big failures in the county. But really, it's because we've had this product, this market was growing because of how effective lithium-ion batteries are, how they make our lives easier. And then there was a large investment in the infrastructure, and so we had a lot of growth in this space over the last, say, 5 years. Right now we identify 4 different presentations of lithium-ion batteries. We have the energy storage system, which is what I'm here to talk about, electric vehicles, personal mobility, and then personal electronics. So personal mobility is going to be anything that doesn't fall into a vehicle category. So everything short of a motorcycle, something that doesn't require DOT registration. And then personal electronics is everything else, whether it's a flashlight, your power drill, you name it, whatever you are charging is going to be a personal electronic device. Battery energy storage systems are those large energy storage systems. This one is actually in Australia. We actually had the largest one in the world down in Otay Mesa and Gateway facility. That was the largest one in the world up until Moss Landing was developed, which then they also had an unfortunate incident in Moss Landing. What I try to educate executives, boards, public elected officials is when there is a failure, it's extremely rare. The saying that I have is 99% of the time, all these things work like they're supposed to. 1% of the time that they fail, that's our 100% of the time. That's why the fire department exists, right? We very rarely meet you when everything's going good, right? More often than not, we're going to encounter something that's not working the way it's designed to work. These failures don't happen very often, but we have to be prepared. We have to manage that risk. And then as elected officials, it's important for you to understand, what does that look like? If it does fail, what does that look like from a response perspective? It depends on a variety of things, from the age of the facility to the codes and standards that were applied to them, and also the location or the zoning of where they were built. So those are the real big things that we're going to take into account for risk management. More likely than not, there's going to be some kind of toxic off-gassing. This is going to occur anytime any large warehouse burns. So let's forget about batteries for a second. This is going to happen if there's a large warehouse fire in downtown San Diego. There's going to be a plume. There's going to have to be some kind of shelter in place and evacuations, but those are all things that we can expect to occur. We're going to use public safety announcements, everything from our WIAs and reverse 911 systems that are in place to protect the public. We can do road closures, all the same kind of things we would do on any typical fire. And we're prepared to do that, and our personnel are trained to do that. One thing that changes is from our experience, a lot of times these incidents, because of that reignition potential, leads this to be a multiple operational period or multi-day response. Usually requires the engagement of the fire department to be there for a greater than 12-hour period, sometimes 24. In Otay Mesa's situation, it was 14 days that we were down there. So you can imagine that's a huge draw on the resources of the region. So that's something that we, from the fire department's perspective, but also from your perspective, need to understand. There's a potential you're going to have a couple of fire engines not available in your area because they're going to be assigned to this incident for perhaps multiple days. So that's something that's important to understand. Now, how have things changed? NFPA 855 is a code and standard that got put into place in 2020 after an incident in Arizona that almost killed 4 firefighters. Unfortunately, a lot of times our codes and standards follow an accident. So the California Fire Codes, Chapter 12, deals with battery energy storage systems. UL 9540 and UL 9540A are performance standards that are required to be in place so that we can ensure that it's gone through its paces. It's been tested. It's been placed on fire on purpose so that we know how those systems behave. And if it passes those codes and standards, it's allowed to be implemented. And then again, through your fire marshal's office, we're still, even though we may have all of these criteria, all of these standards passed, we're still assessing the location choice and what infrastructure we have in place to support that the use of that battery energy storage system. Some of the challenges that we see, you're seeing right there, you're seeing a residential energy storage system, is the do-it-yourselfers. You can go on YouTube today and figure out how to make a do-it-yourself residential energy storage system. Does not require any of those codes and standards, does not require to pass any type of strict guidance. It does not require even for you to have a permit to put some batteries together. The permit's going to be when you're connecting it to your house. You're going to have certain types of permit requires. But we do see a lot of do-it-yourself issues. Now, the non-residential, which is your commercial structure ones, are those. This particular one is the Tesla Megapack, but a variety of different manufacturers make a modular system like this. NFPA 855 also guides them, UL 9540, 9540A, which is when they set these things on fire on purpose to watch how the system behaves. And if it behaves properly according to standards, it'll pass and it'll have a 9540A setting. The California Fire Code Chapter 12 also reviews this. And then we come across some of the legacy systems. So the normal question is, okay, NFPA 855 was put into place in 2020. What about the 2016 systems? Well, those are the ones that create a little bit of a challenge for us because they're grandfathered in. So some of the safety mechanisms are not all the same safety mechanisms that are in the 2025, 2026 building facilities are going to be present in a 2016 facility. And so that's a challenge for us. It's important for us in the fire service to identify those in our jurisdiction so that we can prepare and understand that potential risk. There's a lot of great legislation that's starting to get through the state right now. SB 283 requires energy storage systems to provide training to the local fire department when they're going to be implementing a facility in their jurisdiction. They offer the training to the fire department so that they can be educated on that particular system. AB 303 creates buffer zones between buildings and these energy storage systems, and then the buffer zones between energy storage systems themselves. And then AB 588 and 841 is developing a safety working group with the Office of the State Fire Marshal. I'm one of the members of that safety working group, along with a variety of folks from up and down the state of California. So like I said, I was very quick. Are we taking questions now or at the end?
No.
No? Perfect.
Both.
Anytime. I'm available to answer questions.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. That was extremely informative. And I think is really, really timely and really, really critical. This is a really important issue that's certainly really centered for me personally and in terms of representing my constituents. So I will take a couple minutes if any of my colleagues have immediate questions, and then we'll have public comment. Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions, and at the end, you actually kind of answered them, but I'm interested in finding out more about it. The first thing is there a way, well, I guess, do any fire departments have designated interior departments to this? And you just said the Office of Fire Safety Marshal, there's a group now that you folks are using or that you're in what is it? The Office of Safety Fire Marshal. Yeah. So you have a safety working group?
Yeah, so the Office of the State Fire Marshal has a safety working group that's been required by the Assembly to get put together. I'll say this, the San Diego region is the only location anywhere in the country that created the position that I hold. So we are progressively way ahead when it comes to every other department. I mean, I'm working with the FDNY. They're calling me for recommendations. We developed the first SOPs. We developed the first curriculum. The curriculum that I propose is going through its final process in the state, and it's going to be a statewide curriculum for the fire service. So we're lucky. I'm lucky to have the position, and we're lucky that the region was supportive in that. And then the state is now developing a safety working group to look at some more legislative ways where we can have some safety put into place.
Is there a trend to designate or establish like firefighters or a group that are specific for either battery storage systems or electrical fires? I mean, the more electric, vehicles and everything they grow, you think about the fire that could happen that you guys can't put out. I mean, for me, that's frightening, but the technology is wonderful too at the same time. So are they going to be creating more? Is there going to be a designated, because you talk about, I'm from La Mesa, so we have Heartland, and thinking about a ladder truck or a truck going out and spending days at a location is huge, because if there is something in our city or in any of the 3 cities that are Heartland, make up Heartland, that's huge. That's a huge loss. So are they going to be creating something like that? And if so, or are they looking into doing anything that is specifically designated to address electrical fires?
So the short answer would probably be no, as far as specifically identifying a specialized unit or a specialized team to do this. No, the expectation is the fire department is going to respond just like every other type of industry fire that we have. Out in Heartland, there's a lot of industry out there, and we can have all different types of incidents that are going to require the response for the fire department. Many of them will require us to be there for multiple days, not just energy storage systems. And so in San Diego County, we have the Hazardous Incident Response Team, the HAZMAT team, which is made up of San Diego City fire personnel and county environmental health. They are the experts when it comes to those types of difficult, challenging fires to respond to. We have mutual aid agreements with all the cities in San Diego so that you don't have a truck that gets stuck in one place without the opportunity to rotate those crews out, bring in additional help, and then also provide support from a mutual aid perspective. So we've addressed a lot of some of those challenges. But the reality is, regardless of whether it's a battery energy storage system or just industry in general, there's going to be a dedicated impact to the fire department. And that's one of the things that I think is important for all of us to know, is that the potential is, and I bring this up, for example, in electric vehicles. Typically a car fire, 10 minutes for us, and we put it out and we're back at the station running the next call. Electric vehicle fires, that's not the case. Our engines are going to have to be assigned at a minimum for 2 hours on those incidents. Right. So those impacts are going to be real in general for the fire department, and something that we are managing at this time, and we're going to continue to try to manage as best as we can. There are several working groups looking at these things within the fire department. So the U.S. Fire Administration, the International Association of Firefighters, the International Association of Fire Chiefs. I'm on all these working groups. FireScope, which is a large fire conglomerate here in the state of California, has stood up a team looking at these challenges, developing procedures, guidelines, recommendations for the fire department, including training curriculums, and trying to get the message out to the fire department on how to handle this. And not just the fire department, first responders in general. I mean, law enforcement is going to be there at the impact of a traffic accident before the fire department will. And so we're trying to train all our first responders to be aware of the hazards, how to make sure that they minimize the impact to themselves and the public. And then I also try to come out and talk to elected officials to kind of educate you on what does that look like? What kind of impact does that mean for us?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Please.
Thank you, Chair. Battalion Chief, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. You started to get to this, the mutual aid component of this. Sounds like you're the point if there is a battery related fire. I'll share that the mutual aid responses that I've seen, it's the single most impressive, and I would say like even kind of, not to be kind of cheesy about it, but like inspiring thing that I've seen as an elected official. I think about one of the fires in my district and the complete lack of ego and concern about like jurisdictional boundaries, not for like the fire needed to be put out and like everyone was there to do it. And there was a chain of command and everyone followed it. So the same procedures are in place for a battery fire. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Can you, well, I'm sure everyone here is somewhat familiar with our mutual aid response. So it makes me feel better understanding that there's significant resources that it requires. I'm curious what sort of research is going on to figure out more effective materials or substances it sounds like it's a huge issue and we're going to only be more dependent on battery storage. So is someone trying to make $1 billion to help put out these fires more quickly?
Yeah, people are looking at a lot of different tools and techniques. The reality is, from my perspective, what's going to really help is actually continuous development of the safety of the batteries themselves. Mm-hmm. I know somebody else was talking about PNNL, Pacific National Labs. They're doing a ton of work in the battery space as well, developing non-flammable electrolytes, developing solid state batteries, which have a lower risk when it comes to potentially some of those toxic gases. So I think that there's going to be a combination, right? I think it's going to be effort from the industry to continuously improve the battery safety. And then there are going to be some manufacturers trying to do some work, but I always hesitate because right now I haven't seen anything that looks promising. I mean, they've literally put these batteries in liquid nitrogen, which is like minus 270 degrees, and they still don't stop from doing their thing. So it's a very challenging problem that smartest engineers in the world are trying to find a solution for that. As far as extinguishing the batteries, again, the thermal runaway is not a fire; it's a chemical reaction, and so you can't extinguish a non-fire, and so it's really difficult. It's a really challenging event. But there are containers and other types of ideas out there that are being utilized to at least contain the incident and minimize that collateral damage from those fires. So I think it's got to be a three-sided approach, probably, development of new safer technology, providing some tools that allow us to minimize the impact of that incident, and then continuously look at our training, our response models, and what we can do to work on these incidents. But it is a challenge.
Thank you, Battalion Chief. Thank you, Chair. Yes.
Thank you. Others? Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chief, thanks for the great presentation. This is absolutely amazing to hear all the differences and what's going on around here. I think most of the questions I had have been answered by my colleagues asking the great questions. When it comes to finding solutions, when it comes to funding, like you said, if you're having your truck stay on site for days or weeks, are you finding that there's adequate funding? Because I would think that those who are making batteries would be interested in making sure that if there's a failure, that there's some way to contain it, put it out, or whatever it might be. Same with state and federal agencies, with how much money they've put into electrifying, automobiles and having the battery storage and all that. I think that they would want to participate, and also agencies like San Diego Community Power. I think it's an important part because of the safety of the community. I think that all my colleagues would share that the one concern that we all have is public safety. I know that's your focus each and every day that you and your team wake up and go to work to see what comes your way. I'm just curious, what are you seeing as far as funding? Because it sounds like that's a lot of organizations, everybody's kind of working together in kind of different areas for the same goal.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's not unusual for us in the fire department to kind of be presented with a new problem that people didn't think about, like, oh, what happens when it fails? Oh, the fire department will figure it out. That's usually kind of what ends up happening, right? And so I think we're kind of at the maybe not the beginning of that anymore. I think we're past that phase, and we're now starting to talk about funding. But I think a lot of work is being done at the legislative level. I'm hearing some different potential bills that are coming through for funding. I think that that's the future. It's not there yet, but I think that that's definitely a direction that we're going. Things like, for example, you change your battery out of your car, you pay a recycling fee, right, for that battery to be properly recycled. When you buy paint, you pay an extra amount of money for the paint, then for the company like Sherwin-Williams or Dunn Edwards or whoever to get the paint back for proper disposal, right? So I think that direction exists. We do that with lead acid batteries, with paint, with all kinds of things. I think that direction we're going in that direction where the battery is going to have a certain amount extra for the proper disposal, removal of all that. That right now doesn't exist. And that's from the back end, right? From the battery is bad, I got to get rid of it. And we're seeing a lot of trash truck fires because people don't know how to get rid of it. They're throwing it in the trash, which is illegal. And when the trash truck crushes the battery, it starts your trash truck fire. But from a response perspective, the large energy storage systems have been great to work with. As far as every company I've worked with, whether in a bad day when they had a failure or just in general, they've been great to work with. They've partnered, they've supported. Like the response down in Otay Mesa was supported by that private operator. All the costs associated with it and all those things. The challenge really is more in the unregulated space. So the e-bikes, the e-scooters, the hoverboards, all of those are unregulated. There's no standards and there's no fees associated with those. And so we're responding to those as well. And there was no way to do kind of cost recovery on those types of incidents.
I appreciate that because I think you're right. At some point, there's going to get to be where there will be funding automatically. When you're buying a battery, you have to do something to offset the problems. And you're right. It's not if, it's going to be when. Electric energy has been proven to be very effective, but the failures are significant in the scope when they do happen. I think that this would be a great topic for our public outreach team from San Diego Community Power to really address with our public, because I don't think most people are thinking about there's a pouch inside your laptop that helps keep it charged, or that your e-bike could catch on fire and it may not go out. And these are young kids are doing these things. I think it would be great to have some information and that the agency works with you and the others who are participating in this. But again, amazing presentation, great information. Sure appreciate your time. And I would have sat here for 4 hours. So just for the record.
Thank you.
Why don't you let our team know, my colleagues know, when is your next seminar? They might sign up.
Next seminar?
Yeah, your 4-hour seminar.
When is the next seminar? I just did one last week at the CalJack conference out in Palm Springs, which is a labor and management joint conference from the fire department. So I don't have anything booked at this
Keep
time.
us posted and we can see if any board members would like to attend.
Okay.
This is extremely helpful and very informative. Well, thank you. Do we have public comment?
We have none, Madam Chair.
No public comment. Any further questions from my colleagues?
I just have one more.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
please, go
So
ahead.
this is a selfish question. So I have this iPhone and it starts to get super hot and I don't know why it's getting hot. Is that the battery?
That is the battery, yes. And it's normal for a battery to get hot when it's in operation, as long as, and the great thing about cell phones is that they're one of the best battery management systems anywhere. And so the battery management system really controls that, prevents it from catching fire, right? So and again, that goes back to regulation. So cell phones, laptops, cars, and energy storage systems are highly regulated, highly well built. They have some of the best technologies as far as prevention of failures. It's when we start getting to the unregulated stuff and the do-it-yourself projects that we start seeing problems.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think
Madam Chair, the presentation continues. We have Jason from Clean Tech.
Oh, even better. Thanks.
Well, I'll say that's a hard act to follow. I don't have props, and I won't be here for 4 hours. So with that, thank you for having me here. So my name is Jason Anderson with Clean Tech San Diego. We are a renewable energy business association. I don't even know how to pretend to even work this thing. Here we are, one of the way. All right. So Clean Tech San Diego. So we are a renewable energy association. We've been around here in San Diego for 18 years. We were launched as an organization when AB 32 was passed by the state and some community leaders, the city of San Diego, the utility, UCSD, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, got together, created this organization to support what we thought would be a growing industry for our region. And so we work with 135 of our members to really help advance and support the clean tech sector here in the region. And this is what that sector looks like. We're actually just about to update these numbers next month of January, but about 38,000 jobs are supported by this industry here in our region, most of those being solar installers, and the clean tech sector has about a $9.5 billion impact on our regional economy. Talking a little bit about batteries, and let me just say really quick, and to kind of echo something that Rob said, is that he is kind of one of a kind. There's no other city, as he said, in this country that has someone like him that employs him to kind of be an expert in renewable energy and batteries in particular. So we're very, very fortunate to have him in San Diego, and he's been a great partner of ours and others as we really talk about batteries through our region. So let me just, and I'm talking about the regulated side of things. So what I think you all are interested in as representatives of community power is what we're doing from an energy perspective. And this clicker is crazy. All right, so just real quick, battery storage. So a couple of the key benefits of batteries. They obviously allow for more renewable energy on the grid. They provide backup power. Probably most importantly, they help manage energy costs. So they help us store solar power, which is inexpensive, and store that when we use it later in the evenings when the sun's not shining. And they support the increased adoption and use of renewable energy. Here in California, it was just announced, I think on Monday this week, we have 17,000 megawatts of battery storage online here in California, and we have plans to meet 52,000 megawatts by 2045. I'll say there's one other jurisdiction that has more battery storage than we do, and that's China. So once again, California is leading the way in this space. Sorry. Let me just talk really quick. We all know what a Flex Alert is. Let me remind you that we haven't had a Flex Alert in 2020 since 2022. In July 2024 was the hottest day on record. That is because, and you can see on this chart, as more and more battery storage projects come online, the need to have a Flex Alert has decreased. And all the experts will say that is because of battery storage. And just touching really quick on safety, I know Rob covered a lot of this. But again, I wanted to point out that as we see an increase in battery storage projects throughout the state and even here in the region, the failure incidents are substantially declining. And in fact, the three projects that Rob talked about, where there are incidents, two of which were here, were all developed and built prior to, again, NFPA 855, UL certification, et cetera. So older legacy systems that are just designed and built much differently than the projects are today, using very different technologies. So by no means am I diminishing the concern of fires, but I think it's important to really understand the difference of kind of projects, how they used to be built, and how projects are being developed today. So given the incidents that happened here in San Diego in particular, and just kind of some of the high profile nature and the attention that those incidents drew, Clean Tech San Diego and our members and some of our partners wanted to step back and really understand what does the public actually think about battery storage projects, really in light of some of the NIMBYs that are out there really advocating against battery storage projects. And so we launched an effort last year that got really kicked off this year to really understand what does the broader community think about battery storage projects in our region. And so we launched an initiative that wasn't associated with any sort of project. It was informed by public safety experts, including Rob, labor experts, industry, et cetera. And then we backed that up with some secondary research just to help us really understand where the industry is today, where it's going, and again, really understand how the public actually feels about battery storage. So we hired professionals to do that for us. We hired both a polling organization as well as a marketing firm, and conducted an online survey. This is just gives you, sorry about the color there, but this gives you enough, just an understanding of the type of methodology we used, and more importantly, how many people we reached out to. It's worth noting, really bad timing on our part, but we actually released this survey into the public right after the LA fires and right after the Moss Landing fire. But what that did, I think, is fires was on everyone's mind when we were doing this survey. And so I think in retrospect, that was actually really good for us. The presentation that I could do is probably 80 plus slides. This is a pretty in-depth survey and very in-depth results. I won't do that for you today, but happy to meet with you and bring the pollster in to talk a little bit more in detail about what we learned as part of this. This is just the demographics of who we actually spoke with. So we interviewed about 856 people. Wanted to make sure that the respondents were very reflective of San Diego, our county. And again, we cast a wide net when we did this survey to ensure for that. So getting into it, we started this survey kind of big picture, asking people what was really top of their mind. Probably no surprise to any of you, cost was the #1 issue, both for housing and utility costs. I think what's important to kind of point out here is that jobs in the economy are still on people's minds, and wildfire prevention actually ranked 4th here in this really open-ended question to the survey respondents. We then wanted to just get a pulse of where people were in terms of our transition away from fossil fuels into this region, and 65% of folks continue to support the work that you all are doing and the work that many of us are doing here locally to transition away from fossil fuels. So 65% is a great number. We really felt really great about that kind of going into this. For those that support the transition, climate change, kind of environmental stewardship continues to remain kind of the key driver behind that. You'll see at the distant kind of 10% there is kind of the more affordable options that renewable energy provides. So again, more positive kind of responses coming from those respondents. For those that responded negatively to our transition away from fossil fuels, they really noted expensive energy as the primary reason for that. Obviously, that's not the case, but again, good for us to know as we were kind of moving into this survey. So digging a little bit into the battery storage side of things, one of the things we wanted to do with this survey is make sure that it was online. We did that because we wanted to show the respondents pictures of actually what we were talking about. So you'll see here, the first question was, residents' perspective on residential battery storage. Again, showing them a picture of what that means. What we learned there is 61% of residents in our region support residential battery storage. We then moved on to commercial battery storage, and again, 63% of support there for those types of projects. Kind of, I think what we're all talking about here is these larger kind of standalone projects, and again, this 10 megawatt plus. Again, high percentage rates here, over 55% of folks supporting these projects in our region. We then wanted to get a little bit more local, really understand what people think about kind of in San Diego County. And again, 65%, 66% support battery storage projects here in our county. Again, a great response. And obviously, and quite honestly, something I personally was a little bit surprised by, just again, given kind of the rhetoric we were hearing, we were hearing from community members, and again, the fact that we were doing this survey after Moss Landing and LA fires. To talk about this real quick, just kind of the 65% of people in San Diego supporting battery storage, this digs a little bit deeper into kind of breaking that down by our county supervisor districts. So you'll see there the highest support comes from District 3 and District 4. I think that's important to note, just given where some of these projects are being proposed. Moving into whether or not people support batteries in their neighborhood, here's what we found out. A clear majority of people still support battery storage projects in their own neighborhood. Again, digging a little bit deeper into this, District 2 and 5 fell below 50% in terms of support, but 1, 3, and 4 we're still high in terms of people actually supporting these types of projects in their own neighborhood. And you'll even see there kind of in the orange that the opposition numbers, even within that, still remains pretty low. So I think when we talk about a PR and education of the community about the benefits of these projects, kind of that gray area, that unknown and that unsure is, I think, a lot of opportunity for us to educate the public on why these projects are important. One of the things, because this was also kind of a PR related effort as well, we really wanted to kind of test how people responded to messaging as it relates to battery storage. So I won't go into these in detail, but I think it's important to note here that it resonates with people that these projects are important for our clean energy transition. They're critical to make sure that we have a reliant grid. I think people were positively responded to the fact that the only 3 fires last year in the US were battery storage projects compared to over 350,000 of home fires. And so really starting to let people understand and help them understand kind of how these projects are important and how they're safe was one of the things we wanted to do as part of this effectiveness here. Again, happy to go into this in greater detail, but I think we did some follow-up questions as part of this once we shared this messaging and shared these facts. And we saw some increase in support for these types of projects. So just to wrap it up here, I think hopefully all we need battery storage. It's critical to deliver clean energy for our region. It's critical to meet our renewable energy goals. Battery storage systems continue to make a huge difference. As Rob said, with the adoption of NFPA 855 and UL certification, they're becoming safer. And regional energy providers like Community Power will need to rely heavily on renewable energy and battery storage projects to meet your goals. And so we're going to need a lot more in this region. And I think my final slide is here is that our community actually supports these projects. I think we hear differently as projects are being proposed in different jurisdictions around our region. But I think through this data, the survey that we conducted, we have a better understanding that there is broad support for these types of projects. So I hope as you move forward with PLAs and PPAs and doing the work you need to do to meet your goals from Community Power's perspective, this gives you a little bit more certainty and clarity that the broader community actually supports these projects. So with that, happy to answer any questions. As I said, there's a lot more data here behind the survey and happy to bring the team that I worked in to talk with you individually if you want to dig a little bit deeper into that.
Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
So how are the surveys distributed? I mean, how did you reach the group of people or?
Yeah, so I'm not a pollster. I did not conduct the survey. We hire Probosky Research who does this type of work. And so they have whatever their channels are to get these means out into the broader public. So most of that was done by email because we wanted to make sure, email and phone, because we wanted to make sure that we could show folks pictures. But it was done in traditional ways that surveys are conducted.
So they were done via email, but nothing was, do you know if they were, I'm sorry to ask because the older generation so in La Mesa, we had a battery storage project that was recently scrapped, and the neighborhood was really upset about it. And they were older though, so I don't know that they check their emails or when they do they're sharing. Sometimes, unfortunately, like my in-laws, they'll share those bad jokes that are, circulating. But I guess I'm just trying to make sure. I saw that the sample looked like you had quite a bit of diversity among the ages, so that seemed good. But I guess I'm just wondering how many of those people were, in those older neighborhoods where they were looking to put that battery facility right in the middle of our neighborhood. So I'm curious about that as to the sample size and how they reached them, if it was just email or if they were also, sent paper snail mail.
Yeah, there wasn't budget was limited on this, so we didn't do any sort of paper mail or anything like that, but it was done via email and then via a text on your phone to participate in a survey that we all get many times. It was very similar kind of fashion to
that. Also, sorry.
Please don't. This isn't very interesting. So thank you.
Thank you for being here, Jason. I appreciate it. I think a lot of the conversations are around large scale battery storage for obvious reasons. That's super important to us. I'm increasingly intrigued by balcony solar. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Apparently, it's pretty popular in Germany, and Utah has recently adopted it as a technology that can be used. It becomes particularly valuable to renters if they can't get their landlord to, put a solar project on their building. If the affordable developer isn't able to get it as part of the deal, it gives individual renters the opportunity to tap into solar power. And are you guys engaged on this topic at all?
So what did you call it? Balcony?
Yeah, balcony solar.
I've not heard that.
Okay.
So we do work with companies that are doing solar on affordable housing projects and multifamily projects to allow access for those. And there's a technology that actually was developed here in San Diego through a company called Ivy Energy that allows for that. So that's
for the whole project though, correct? Is that solar is for the whole project? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that type of work that's happening for affordable housing units and just multifamily units in general. This was specifically kind of just focused on the battery side of things and more, as you noted, on the utility side of things, kind of the grid scale side of things.
Yeah.
But there are companies doing kind of solar plus storage for multifamily properties around the state. And I think even Community Power has, I'm looking at Jack to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think through some of the SCHIP programs and some of the kind of programmatic stuff, you're looking at those types of offerings for multifamily users as well.
Yeah, this is basically like it's like rooftop solar for individual apartments or condos, right? And there's a battery component to it, which for obvious reasons it allows the that solar that's pulled in during the day to be used, and it has a meaningful impact in terms of the additional savings that those households can tap into. But my understanding is that those small projects are treated the same way from a regulatory standpoint as the big stuff that we're as a large scale project. So I was just curious if Clean Tech's engaged on that front at all. Obviously, this is a county that has a lot of renters. There's a lot of multifamily. There's only going to be more multifamily, and so those tend to be folks who are most impacted by the cost of energy. So that's why I was curious to what extent you all are talking about it. And
yeah, and I think there's mechanisms in place to allow for more of those, so that it does provide the benefits to the renters that individual homeowners receive, or those that have kind of direct access to those storage facilities, those storage units. Do you have anything on that?
I know the systems that you're talking about. We'll have to look into that because that's something interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I was just curious again if it's something that Clean Tech is engaged in at all. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Well, I'm pleased at my district. I'm pleased at my district. That's my comment. So thank you.
There's for each of the questions we have the breakdown for each district. So I'm happy to share that
Please
with you. You can
do.
see all of it.
Absolutely.
Kind of, we did it in the count. We couldn't really dig down into the jurisdictions within the municipalities.
You have the perfect size. District
so
3.
We'll do it.
Thank
I'll
you.
share that with you.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Any public comment on this matter?
There are none, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We're moving on. I think this is a receive and file.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, great. So we have one last item today. This is item 18, update on the regulatory and legislative agenda. Please, Laura Fernandez, take us away.
Good evening, Laura Fernandez, Senior Director of Regulatory and Legislative Affairs here at San Diego Community Power. I have the distinct pleasure of standing between you and dinner, so we'll try to keep it quick and efficient here. As you know, we provide written staff reports each month before both the Community Advisory Committee as well as the board, but we present verbally on a quarterly basis. I will be speaking today about the state legislature and outcomes from the 2025 legislative session. The information I'm presenting on today actually appeared in an earlier staff report since the legislative session ended on September 13th. Next slide, please. So 917 bills were sent to the governor to sign or veto. 794 of those were signed into law. Community Power tracked and analyzed around 170 bills this year, and 76 of those were passed by the legislature, and 51 of those were signed into law. Pursuant to Community Power's board-approved legislative platform, we supported 11 bills and took an opposed unless amended position on another 2, and I'll be covering those in this presentation. 6 supported bills were signed into law, 3 stalled in the legislative process, and 2 were vetoed. The 2 bills that we saw amendments on did not pass, and we also supported 2 funding efforts, and I'll speak to those a little bit more in the next slides. Of the 2 funding efforts, one was reasonably successful and the other did not get an appropriation by the legislature. And just to note, the 2026 legislative session is just around the corner. It begins on January 5th, so very quickly, just setting the stage a little bit. Next slide, please. Oh, we're already good. We're good. Stay there. So some of the bills and outcomes of what we supported. There were some Brown Act reforms. SB 707 was a global omnibus reform of the Brown Act, and it included in that was a provision from a bill that we supported, which was SB 239. There was language in there that was amended into SB 707, and what that language does, which was important to us, is it says that subsidiary bodies such as the Community Advisory Committee can use streamlined teleconference procedures between 2026 and 2030. The board will have to approve this once a year for the CAC to be able to use it, but it'll make it a little bit easier if the CAC wants to meet remotely or if certain members want to join remotely. We saw this as a really positive as it balances being able to hold CAC meetings and balances that with community access. A couple of other bills, SB 283 that was mentioned in the previous presentation, something that we supported, the new fire department and inspections for energy storage systems. You all just heard plenty about that, so I'll leave it at that. SB 302, it aligns state tax law with federal clean energy tax provisions. State law will no longer tax those transferable tax credits, so that'll save us about 1 to 6% on project costs. Next slide, please. So the preeminent thing that happened this year in energy was a pretty robust energy and climate package. It was signed into law. There are sort of 3 legs to it, and I'll go over each of those. The first one is something that we actively supported throughout the year. AB 825 will allow the California Independent System Operator to participate in an independently governed regional market starting in 2028. Right now, CAISO operates a balancing authority and an energy market for about 80% of California. It's where we buy and trade our power in. This legislation will allow us to broaden the footprint of trading partners across the West. Studies have shown that this expansion has the potential to lower energy costs by about $1 billion annually and reduce natural gas generation by up to 31%, as well as increase grid reliability. So we think that this will be really good for affordability for customers, grid reliability, as well as achieving our climate goals. SB 254 was an omnibus energy bill. It really focused on continuing the wildfire fund. This was in response to what happened in LA. This is for the IOUs to deal with claims that may be filed against them for wildfires sparked by their equipment. The IOUs are required as a part of this legislation to spend $6 billion on wildfire prevention without earning a rate of return on it. It also included a new public transmission infrastructure accelerator, which will be a 5-year project to fund a number of transmission projects with public dollars as opposed to private dollars, and hopefully save some money on the transmission we need in the state. Finally, AB 1207 extended and renamed the state's cap and trade program, which was set to sunset in 2030. It's now called Cap and Invest, and it will run through 2046. This is important for our customers because it continues the California climate credit that people receive on their bill twice each year. That comes from the allowance proceeds from this program. The credit will be probably reformed a little bit. It's likely that the credit will now be provided in the summer months, the highest usage months when people need it the most, but the funding mechanism has been extended. Next slide, please. So let's go over some vetoes. There were 2 bills that we supported that were vetoed by the governor based on, and the vetoes were based on cost to the state as well as duplication of efforts already underway. AB 44 would have required the Energy Commission to enshrine in their publications their load modification protocols. This is a process that we use for our solar battery savings program, and it would have formalized this process and saved it on the books in perpetuity, but the governor vetoed it due to cost pressure on the state. Related, he also vetoed a bill that we supported that would have required a statewide virtual power plant deployment plan that we thought was complementary to what our organization is trying to do on the VPP front. On funding outcomes, we were successful in advocating for money for the Distributed Electricity Backup Assets Program. $46.1 million is going to that program. The program will fund essentially battery projects, and there's a preference for projects at water agencies, but it can be for residential as well. We also supported funding for the demand side grid support program. It's kind of a sister program, but it has more of a demand response program, a demand response focus, but the legislature did not put forward an appropriation for that program. We also took two opposed and less amended positions on different bills. One of them would have created a statewide demand management oversight task force, which would have given the state authority to make binding recommendations about customer programs, including programs offered by San Diego Regional Energy Network and programs that would be approved by this board. We expressed concerns about this with respect to this board's autonomy and local control to offer and develop programs without the state's ability to say yes or no to these programs. But this bill was actually amended at the last minute and changed into an entirely different subject. That was the regional grid integration bill I discussed previously. So that's a good outcome for us because this statewide demand management task force is no longer, but maybe it comes back next year. We'll keep you posted. Finally, we also took an opposed and less amendment position on AB 1295. This would have led to some unbalanced reforms on customer bills. It was supported by SDG&E, but ultimately was held on the suspense file. That is all I have, but don't worry, there's more coming from the rest of my team. So, Stephen Gunther, take it away.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, board. My name is Stephen Gunther, Regulatory Manager at Community Power. I'll be presenting on two regulatory items before passing off to a colleague. So I'm starting off with the Integrated Resource Planning, which is the umbrella proceeding at the California Public Utility Commission, or CPUC, for planning the state's electricity supply. It's also the primary venue for planning greenhouse gas emissions reductions in the electricity sector. So it's a very big, important proceeding that happens at the PUC. And we're bringing it forward today because there's been some recent activity in the regulatory space that may eventually impact our operations and how we manage our portfolios. Wrong way. Oops, sorry. There we go. Oh, went too far, sorry. Okay, we got this now. All right, so first I just wanted to put the IRP in context of the broader planning that happens at the state. There's several agencies involved in planning in the electricity sector, and they all have different roles. So starting at the top, you have the California Air Resources Board, and they develop the scoping plan, which sets the GHG emissions targets for each sector, including the electricity sector. You then have the California Energy Commission that forecasts the expected electricity demand, both at the system level and for individual load-serving entities like Community Power. Then the IRP, which we'll be speaking about today, that models the supply that would be needed to meet that demand. And then that resource mix, that modeled supply, informs the California Independent System Operator on their transmission planning process, so they know where to build new transmission lines or upgrade existing ones. And then lastly, there's load-serving entities like SDG&E and Community Power that are actually procuring the energy and storage resources needed to meet these plans. So drilling down into the IRP itself, it's made up of two primary components, planning and procurement. The planning track is exactly what it sounds like. It's a planning process where the CPUC performs needs assessments and models the future supply portfolios to meet that need. And as a part of that process, individual LSCs like Community Power develop our own individual plan on how we plan to serve our load in our territory. Those individual plans are all aggregated by the state to develop the preferred system portfolio. And that portfolio is used for a bunch of different purposes to inform things. As I already mentioned, it informs the transmission planning, but it also informs other proceedings like gas planning, and it helps calculate what the avoided costs would be if we're avoiding generation on the system for programs like energy efficiency. So it's an important portfolio to help inform other proceedings. And it also feeds into the procurement track. And this is when the CPUC determines that there's a need for more supply in the near to midterm. And they have considered that they have jurisdiction over LLCs to order procurement to meet that need. So they order us to contract a given amount of resources to fill those gaps in the system need. Currently, this process occurs on a one-off basis when that need's determined. But the CPUC has proposed a more orderly approach that would set regular timelines for procurement obligations, which I'll talk about a little later. So moving on to the recent activity. Earlier this year, the CPUC opened a new proceeding for regulating the IRP. And then last month, the commission issued a scoping memo, which outlined the issues that they're going to address and the schedule to address those issues. I'll be speaking a little bit more detail about some of those issues, but basically it's broken up into the regular process of the cyclical planning process, which has a bunch of different items that have to occur every round. And then there's a few key or individual issues that have been determined that need some enhancements in this process. So moving on to the individual LSC filing requirements, Community Power will be required to file our updated IRP next May. So it'll be a large undertaking from our power services team to develop that portfolio to meet the state's need. We're still waiting on the templates from the CPUC, which were expected to come out any day now since they're expected in November, which is almost over. And those templates will allow us to start filling out that portfolio. We'll set the requirements on what GHG targets we're looking for and what reliability targets we're looking for. IRPs will come to this board. They have to be board approved before they go to the CPUC. So that's something we'll be bringing back in a few months. And the last time we went through this process was in 2022. Our current integrated resource plan is available on our website. But there has been some delays at the cyclical process, which usually happens every 2 years. But now this is the first time we've had to do it since 2022. And then moving on to also in this proceeding, there was a ruling on a potential procurement order. So related to the process I described earlier, when the CPUC determines that there may be a gap in our reliability needs, they order that there be no new procurement. And the staff analysis found that the system may be short 6,000 megawatts. So they're recommending that the commission order load serving entities to require to contract new resources to fill that gap. Currently, this is just a staff recommendation, and the ruling included many questions for parties on how that process would work. And we were engaged with our trade association, CalCCA, to respond to those questions and push back on some of the narrative that procurement orders don't necessarily help get new resources online. There's other barriers, but just telling us to go out and contract, we're doing that every day. So this is maybe not the right tool, and it creates price shocks. But we'll see what the PUC does with those comments. We're expecting a final decision no later than February, but before that, there'll be another process for public comment when a proposed decision comes out. So we'll be planning on engaging in that as well. And then lastly on this, the CPUC is continuing to develop a new proposed framework known as the Reliable, Clean Power Procurement Program, or RCPP. And this, the intention of this is to move away from these ad hoc procurement orders like the one I just described and move to a more programmatic approach with a regular cadence and orderly timeline so we can predict in the future what our requirements are going to be. The proposal addresses both the reliability needs as well as how we're moving towards our GHG targets in a long-term framework. And each of those frameworks include a process for determining what that need is, an allocation for which LSCs need to procure that amount, the compliance requirements and enforcement mechanisms. So that's like the broad framework. Excuse my clicker. But there's a lot of details that need to be worked out. And generally, stakeholders agree that this is a good move to this more orderly, predictable process. But the details, there's a lot of varying opinions among over 60 stakeholders that have commented on this process. There's been multiple day workshops, new alternative proposals filed by our other parties. So there's a lot to come on this, but we wanted to bring it forward today to just kind of preview that this is going to be a significant change in how the PUC handles its procurement orders in the future. So more to come on that. So that finishes the IRP discussion. The next item I wanted to briefly discuss is SDG&E's 2026 Energy Resource Recovery Account Forecast, or ERA. The error forecast is the annual proceeding in which SDG&E forecasts their costs for the next year's generation-related costs. This is their commodity costs, not the distribution and transmission that is handled in the GRC. It also determines the power charge and difference adjustment, or PCIA rate, which CCA customers pay. So the outcomes of this case have direct impacts on Community Power's rates and competitiveness with SDG&E. Our rates team will be providing a presentation on SDG&E's 2026 rates next month, but there are still several unknowns, and we're still in the process of litigating this case in the regulatory space to ensure customers are unfairly charged. So in that regulatory process, Community Power really primarily litigated on one major issue to support the fair allocation of costs to our customers. And this was related to SDG&E's use and the way they valued retired renewable energy credits, or RECs. And our position that is if SDG&E were to use these retired RECs for compliance purposes, they should be properly valued. They were valuing them at zero, but there is a value to the use of these RECs if they're using it for compliance. And that value should flow into the PCIA rates and process to make sure that those benefits are spread fairly across customers, whether they're bundled or unbundled. So there's some details on how that accounting mechanics should work. So we commented, or we're very, very engaged in the process on that. And a proposed decision actually came out on November 10th, which agreed with Community Power's position on this. So as of now, it looks like we won on that position, and we expect a final decision to be voted out on the December 18th CPUC voting meeting. So hopefully there are no changes to that proposed decision on that particular item. And then just lastly, noting there are preliminary rate impacts that we're aware of from SDG&E's 2026 outlook. These are preliminary, and they do project significant increases in their rates. But like I mentioned, the rates team will be providing a much more in-depth analysis next month when we have certainty on what those numbers actually are. And with that, I will pass it to Aisha.
Thanks, Stephen. Just doing an audio check to make sure folks can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you. So today I'm going to provide a brief update on SDG&E's application to withdraw from regional energy efficiency. I am the last presenter, so we're in the home stretch. But before we get into the slides, I just wanted to emphasize what's really at stake here in this proceeding. Many of the questions that are being tackled in this proceeding are aimed at determining whether energy efficiency is or is not a key affordability measure. And this matters because whatever the CPUC decides in this case will set precedent. So if the commission ultimately decides that energy efficiency is essential for affordability, that finding will strengthen the justification for SDREN's budget and all other program administrators' budgets as we go into 2026, when all program administrators will be filing our 2028 to 2031 budget request for commission approval. So in sum, this isn't just about SDG&E's withdrawal, but it's also about the long-term foundation for funding the programs that help keep customer bills manageable. So with that said, let's start with speaking to how the timeline for this proceeding has evolved. As you can see here, in September, we filed legal briefs arguing that SDG&E's withdrawal is legally impermissible. And at that time, we expected the CPUC to take a two-step approach. First, issue a decision in November solely deciding the legal permissibility question, and then, depending on that outcome, move into a separate phase addressing the policy and factual issues in SDG&E's application. However, the CPUC has since revised that plan. So now, instead of two decisions, they now intend to issue one consolidated decision that addresses the legal, policy, and factual issues together. So the upshot is that this proceeding is no longer bifurcated, and also the final determination on SDG&E's withdrawal will be made sometime between July and August of 2026. And there's a few upcoming, our next, I'll just emphasize here what our next big milestone is. That's January 15th, and that's when Community Power will be filing our opening testimony on the policy and factual issues. Next slide. So now that we went over the timeline, I just wanted to highlight what those core policy and factual issues are that the Commission will be speaking to in that single consolidated decision. And of course, the issues that our January 15th opening testimony will address. So these are themes from the scoping ruling, and there were over 20 questions in that ruling, so I'm not going to go over all of them, but these are the themes from that ruling. So first is administrative responsibility. So as a matter of policy, the Commission's interested in hearing from parties on whether the CPUC should allow SDG&E to assign primary regional administration to SDREN or another entity. Second, customer affordability and rate impacts. So this will get into how withdrawal could affect customer bills, ratepayer benefits, as well as affordability. Third, equity and access to services. So the CPUC wants to hear from parties on the impacts we see that'll occur on disadvantaged and hard to reach communities, and also needed safeguards to ensure equitable access should SDG&E cease providing its regional energy efficiency programs. Fourth, programmatic and geographic gaps. So parties will be weighing in to speak to overlaps or gaps in programs and coverage of SDG&E withdrawals. And then also the CPUC wants to hear from us on what withdrawal would, what kind of impact withdrawal would have for service continuity related to energy efficiency programs. And then finally, in our testimony, we'll be getting into questions surrounding SDG&E portfolio performance, such as reasons for SDG&E's portfolio performance to date, potential strategies to optimize their performance, and how energy efficiency compares to alternative investments for managing load growth. So with that, that concludes our team's presentation, and we are happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from any of my colleagues? Any comments? Do we have public comment on this item?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do we need a motion to, or is this a receive and file?
Receive and file.
Okay, fantastic. Well, with that being said, the next regular meeting of the Community Power Board of Directors will be on December 11th, 2025 at 5 o'clock. We are now at our end of our agenda today. I look forward to seeing everyone in December, and we are adjourned.